Book of Proverbs, verse 8. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. Okay, so, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So the background footage was from someone I was playing Unicorn Overlord. So yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to kind of go through a little bit, kind of like a mini version of a guide for some of the different classes for for Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. And I think for today's video, I wanted to probably more highlight the class called basically known as the Bard. So basically like being a bard. And I might go on the website. I might do some from the video. I might use some of the background footage from here. I might just go on some on Google and stuff, and just show some of the extra stuff. Show some of the more mechanics in there, and I'll try to put some kind of a Christian perspective on this too. Again, I don't like to force a narrative, but I'm sure there's lots of good Christian themes from it too. Okay. So, what are some things about being a bard? So, one aspect, I would probably, it's a good place to start with being a bard is the role that you play. Like a team adventure or part of the story. You are, for the most part, I would say, as a bard. I would say you're probably more of a support class. I mean, sometimes the bards are kind of known as the jack of all trades at times. Bards can do sometimes a little bit of everything, or they can also just be good at several different specific things. Bards can have a very high charisma. They can also be good at stuff like dexterity. And they might be able to do a little bit of some extra skills here and there. So a bard, I would say most bards are not particularly very good at one specific major thing, but they can kind of fill the position of a lot of different roles if need be. So again, having a high sense of dexterity would mean they could theoretically fire a crossbow or something, or a longbow, kind of from up by the sides. So they could be good at stealth, so they can go with other stealth characters. From a Christian point of view, it's stuff like spells and whatnot and magic in this game. It's a really morally great complex issue. I mean, we know as Christians that in the real world we're not supposed to be messing around with magic, but I'm just gonna say it is a fantasy world. And again, you should be careful with this stuff. At minimum, be extremely careful, right? Or if possible, maybe just skip it altogether. But because again, obviously sorcery is a bad thing, but in a fantasy world, I don't really know what to tell you. So you're gonna have to make that decision for yourself. But bards do have some magic. Again, they're not really good at any one area, so they can cast a couple support spells. Again, they can heal the party a little bit. They can fight it, and they can fight it at range a little bit. They have these little, they're kind of like a music class. They can sing or entertain, so they can give you some support, little extra dice. Sometimes they can convince people of things because they're charismatic. Theoretically they could be up in the front lines. Probably not great, but they could be up there for a little while. Because again, when you're using dexterity, you can use a rapier or a short sword or something, and you can fight in you can kind of fight in combat as long as you're not getting hit relentlessly. And again, you can fill the position of a needed spot temporarily. I mean, you wouldn't be great necessarily, but you could still technically do it. If somebody else was sneaking up somewhere, and you have a high dexterity, maybe you have the rank of stealth. You're not a stealth. You're not a rogue, right? but hypothetically you could stealth, and like you're not a ranger, but you can fire a ranged weapon. You might be pretty good at it, and you're not a what's the term? I mean, I'm trying to think of what they call them. Is that cleric? Is that what they call in D&D? Like a priest? You're not a healer, but you can still heal anyways. And you're not really like a spellcaster, but theoretically you could still use a spell. You're not really anything in any one major area, but you can kind of do it anyways, which is very cool. It's very flexible, very interesting class. Also, you have a lot of role-playing opportunities. Also, again, I would say the bard is very great at not just the support role in combat, but just the support role in general. Like, they can boost somebody else up, they can help somebody else in different situations. You know, someone else is trying to they're trying to make like a skill check roll. You can kind of be there to boost them a little bit. You know, you can give them a little bit of some love or whatever, or encouragement. Maybe you can ease some of the tensions. You know, you're also pretty charismatic, so you have a level of influence. But I would argue, as a bard, rarely are you like a majorly, not like a majorly impactful character, but like your role isn't to be like the all-star of the team. You probably don't have major personal like inspirations or something, or even like aspirations. Maybe you're just there to like sing a song or to tell the story or to help some characters out, or maybe you just want to have some fun. You just want to feel some good. You want to hang out in the tavern and spend some gold and buy a little drink, or sing a little song or something, and just kind of hang out. I mean, or maybe sometimes you get yourself mixed up in a little bit some like mischief or some drama, but I feel like you're just kind of there just for the you're there as a bard, just kind of more to be I don't know, you're just there kind of like to tag along, more often than not. It's just kind of like a feel-good class, and again, like you can't do every single skill in the game, but I feel like also the game master is probably inclined to let you as a bard kind of join with different groups of people. Again, like you might not belong to a very specific faction, and I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways the bard is kind of a more, I would say, even like very much more neutral kind of a class. It can fit in with a lot of different people. Which again, I think is very cool. And again, like there's certain backgrounds that might work better for like the bard. For example, I mean, like kind of like sometimes what's the word they call, like, you know, quote unquote cliche. I mean, certain things are just, they work better for other classes, and certain races and stuff work better for certain things than other things. But so like, I would say being human as a bard probably would work pretty good. Being like a half elf would work pretty good. I think the half elf gives as a race gives the +2 to your charisma. I think you get +1 to two other slots, and then being human gives you +1 to all your stats, which again can make it very easy to build. Kind of, again, like a build that I would do. If you're trying to do a little more on the min-max, or just want to become a little more efficient, but again, since the bard uses a lot of charisma and dexterity, the half elf is pretty good. And obviously you can do whatever you want for your character, but if you want to be more efficient, you know, there's other things you can do too. And again, like you might sing, use some supernatural powers to, like, you know, again, like you might make someone else's, like, you know, you might help relieve some suffering or pain. so like different races, like the different backgrounds. I think one I mentioned, it was called like the Entertainer. I mean, again, I don't think as a Christian you probably shouldn't be playing like a charlatan or something. Again, I mean, it is a fantasy world, but like if you want to be like a morally good person, but there are some very deceptive pathways you could go down, and there are some more like wholesome pathways. It really depends on how you want to play your character, or what different background bonuses and stuff you would want. You also could, so there's like Entertainer, maybe you could a little bit of a charlatan. You probably could even maybe argue for like maybe some kind of like an intelligence or wisdom. Again, there's a lot of different variations. So like you could be someone who's maybe very smart. I think like different video games, like especially like Pathfinder or Pathfinder, what's it called, like Kingmaker or Wrath of the Righteous. They have certain, like, there's the bard who's like the author of the first game's story, and like she's generally very smart. I think she's a bard class. I mean, I haven't played that game in forever, but I think she's a bard class. And there's other characters that would be or just like in Dungeons and Dragons, or there's what's his name? It's called a Dandelion from The Witcher 3, or just The Witcher in general. And he's basically a bard class. There was what's it called, from Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. The main character basically was a bard. It was like, the bards could be so like in the movie, he was more of probably more like a chaotic good. He believes in trying to like help people for free, like kind of like a noble aspiration, like a moral nobility in a sense, which is very like what was the name of their organization called again? I think it was like the Harbingers or something. I might have to look that up, but or if you remember in the comments below. But basically, the people who would do good for people would ask for no reward in exchange. I know that they were in Baldur's Gate 3 when I played it. But yeah, like the bard could be linked to something like this is just different colleges of schools, so they could be pretty smart. I mean, depending on how you want to like manipulate it. So there's I mean, like in each of the backgrounds could hypothetically be manipulated partially to go down a very specific road. And if you got the game master's permission, you might be able to adjust it slightly. It's like there's like 25 different backgrounds. So it's like you could adjust it slightly, and maybe you could justify changing one of the skills depending on how you want to make it. Or maybe the game master would expect you to use a different skill based upon your background. So yeah, there's a bunch of different backgrounds, but stuff like this is important. Because if you want to build you want to build a character who's able to do stuff like role playing in the game, and figuring out your backstory and your personal character's lore, and like the reasons why you exist, or what you want to like or dislike about your character. I feel like that makes the game it makes your character feel more realistic. Yeah, so what other Christian points of view could I put on for the idea of a bard? So like in the Bible, the Lord Jesus Christ himself, in holiness, he would use his voice, and he would speak with his voice. And that's one thing of the Bible, that in holiness, God himself, he would perform miracles. I believe he even created the earth itself. He spoke things into existence, which, by the way, is no small feat. And So like, the idea of a voice, you can speak. Also, you could, in Holiness, God is, he's not really depicted as, he's not whimsical. You show him respect. But there's other characters in the Bible, in different stories. I think there was like, so obviously there was like David, and David used some kind of like a lyre or a harp, and he would sing songs. He wrote the book of or at least he heavily inspired, I think, the book of Psalms itself, and he also, I think, helped write or contributed to a couple of the other books of the Bible, and he had his own book written about him too. He was a great example of an adventurer. And there was King Saul, who had like he sinned against God. And David sung some songs, or he used his little harp or his lyre, and he helped soothe Saul's punishment from God. And when it's like the Lord sent some kind of like an evil spirit upon Saul, and it tormented him ruthlessly. And when David would use his little he would use his, I can't remember exactly what it says. Some of these stories are kind of vague, but when he would either sing or like use his musical instruments for him, it gave Saul a level of rest. It helped him to find peace with his existence, even if it was just temporary. Which it's like a beautiful thing, right? And there are other characters in the Bible where it shows them using like their different types of like artistic talents to give relief to other people's suffering in this life, which is it's a lovely thing. There's the idea of like like eating and drinking and being merry, and like kind of like living in the moment. There's again, there's a lot of examples. I'm not sure I'm gonna go through all of them, but there's probably at least 15 or 20 examples. But that's at least a couple to go off of. But the idea of being a bard and using things like charisma can be a force for good, or it can also relieve a lot of it can relieve a lot of the suffering of life and kind of help minimize darkness's power. So it shouldn't be like underestimated or undervalued. So some other examples, maybe not from the Bible, but maybe going into some other fantasy examples. So in the video game, it's called Skyrim, or the Elder Scrolls V. You can sometimes walk around the map, and there will be these like wandering, trying to think. Pronouncing these names are not always easy. I think it's called a minstrel or a minstrel, and they can play these little songs, and you can pay them like 20-30 gold and be like, hey, sing me a song about one of two different things, and they'll sing you a song for like a minute or two, and they'll walk around and you can walk around. It's just like a really cool thing. And an example I was talking about earlier was from The Witcher 3 got Dandelion. I'm gonna be real. I think Dandelion is he is a really, really well-written, pretty interesting, bard-like character. Like he actually has a pretty in-depth story in that game, and he's a pretty intricate character. But for being more of like a support class, and honestly, he was pretty good in the Witcher television show too. He's just a really interesting character. He's very very versatile, and he thinks that he's very kind of like puffed up with pride. He thinks he's extremely important, and he's also kind of like a comic relief. Just like I feel like a lot of bards are kind of comic reliefs. They don't always have a major purpose in the story, but it just kind of smooths it over a little bit. So yeah, in Fire Emblem, you get these characters. I think they're called dancers, and basically a dancer So in Fire Emblem, whenever you take a turn, you take your full turn, and you kind of like darkened out, and a dancer can walk up to another character and dance basically for them, and they can take a second turn. So I mean, again, that's pretty cool at the same time. You know, like it's an ability that I personally would say seems really foolish, and like bards seem like they're kind of like or even like a biblical virtue, right? You know, the idea of being like, you know, humble, or being meek, or being like a simple class or simple person that would seem unvaluable, but they're really just a strong, essential like power of the team. Because I mean, like, they don't always practically contribute massively, but they are, I would say, you know, they are subjectively extremely vital to the team and for the storytelling, and they can smooth stories along. They can offer a lot of value just by helping other players, because being a support class can be very beneficial to a team, because like if everybody always has to be right and is always telling their point of view, and they're always pushing and shoving their personal will, nothing really ever gets done, or no one ever moves forward. But if you have a support class that kind of helps some people out and tries to be a little bit like, you know, like sow a little peace, you can honestly make some pretty good progress. And they do have some pretty good stats sometimes too. So like they have a little bardic inspiration. Now I think it upgrades based upon your level. I think it starts out as like a D8, and I think eventually it can go to like maybe like a D10 or a D12, and you start getting more and more pools of these dice. But in Dungeons and Dragons, for example, I mean, again, like, this can vary. You know, it's just there's the idea of like being a bard, and there's like the actual mechanics of actually playing as one. But I think this video is going to be over soon. But you can get all these little support abilities. So like most of the normal like martial combat classes, they get 2 attacks. The bard only gets 1 attack. But again, like they have their little manipulation they get to do on the battlefield. Like they could sometimes there's like, oh yeah, there's also like auras. Those I think are pretty cool. So like they can give like they can sing a song, and like every single person on the battlefield can get a small buff. I think they also have them in like Pillars of Eternity, where you can call them like a chanter. They're chanting songs, they're chanting words. It's just a very cool idea. So you can give everybody on the team a small like couple percentage bonuses, or like an extra point or two. And it makes people feel good. Here, I think this is from my Final Fantasy XIV, and I made a little video on it. Hopefully it's not too loud. But like you can give these little bardic inspiration to people, and it gives them like basically an extra dice when they're rolling, which I think you also can apply after they do the roll. So if you needed like an extra couple points for a buff, it's also like a bonus action too, right? So like again, like you do have power limitations to this stuff, but it's also highly beneficial. So like a tank or like a warrior, for example, like a fighter, you could give them a little throw. You could basically kind of like, you know, you give them a little like a quick little word, and you're like, hey, here, kind of throw a little dice, and like you kind of like you boost their like positive luck. And getting a plus D8 for like, I think it's like a 10-minute period of time, especially if you're in battle, or if you need to do it for like a certain skill check, a plus 1 D8 is pretty good. Because like if you need like to get a 15 for a skill check, and say you got like a 12, but you get an extra D8, you could give you an extra 3. Again, I'm not sure, but again, I don't remember the exact rules per se, 100%, whether it's like you have to meet it or you have to exceed. But if you got like a plus 3 or a plus 4, that could be dramatic in helping you to get over a skill check. Or you needed to get like a persuasion check, and now you get like an extra, +5, like a D8 or something. That could be really good. Or you need to hit your opponent in combat. You're fighting against a boss. Getting like getting an extra bonus, just seemingly out of the blue. And maybe you don't even get that bonus. Say like the bard goes and they give you a plus D8, and you already went that turn. Next turn comes along, you get this little sense of hope. It makes you just feel good about yourself, and that's really nice. It's like kind of like a little extra encouragement. And maybe, to be honest, that D8, it's not going to do anything, maybe, but it might. And it also lets you interact with other players. So it's just a very cool idea. And they have things like healing word. So like as a bonus action in the middle of combat, you can basically like sing a little kind word out of your mouth and just heal somebody some extra health. It could give you like a bonus from like your charisma, and you could possibly get like, it could be 4 HP. You get like an extra 10, 12 HP, depending on the level you use, right? And healing word can be very valuable. And again, like you're lower on HP, but it's a range-based healing. Again, like I don't always agree with magic, but it's basically a spell. But you can use it as a bonus action. You can give you have a nice pool of extra HP to somebody. Again, say a warrior was tanking a couple enemies, and you were kind of chilling out in the back a little bit. You're firing your little, firing your little crossbow with a dexterity attack. You're trying to help out the team. You try not to hit the tank or their fighter or whatever, right? But like one turn you give them a D8 for the bardic inspiration. Maybe the next turn you give them some extra healing. Man, that fight goes so much smoother and easier. And it's just these little extra buffs and these little extra small encouragement that really makes it so that you can get through the scenario a lot easier. So again, I personally think being a bard it's just very nice. And again, I wouldn't say the bard doesn't do all the classes necessarily. It's good at it's good at range, dexterity. It's good at charisma, and you're kind of it does a lot of support stuff. So though it is a jack of all trades in a sense, it also can't do everything. But sometimes you need a role filled, and it's just useful. And again, this class is all about having fun at the same time. And again, you're probably not the greediest. You're not consumed with money. You're not necessarily consumed with glory. I don't know. You're very temperate, probably in a lot of ways. I mean, there's no reason you can't make a bunch of money or something, but what are you really gonna spend it on as a bard? It's more of a pleasure kind of a class. You just want to feel good a lot of times, and you want other people to feel you want people to be happy in the world, and I think that's probably more your aspiration. And you could get the gold, you can upgrade your equipment or whatever, or invest in your personal interests, but you also could just use the money. When you get extra money, I feel as a bard, you can go out to a tavern, maybe buy some drinks for everybody. And you could just, you could also just boost other people up. So these are some of my thoughts on the bard. And I don't know, this is not a full, in-depth, high detail analysis of the class, but this is just some of my thoughts on it. Because in a lot of ways, I do love playing Dungeons and Dragons. I can say even as a Christian, right? There's obviously some dangerous stuff in it, but there's also a lot of good and fun things too. So yeah, let me know, again, in the comment section below, let me know what your thoughts are on being a bard, and when the last time you played as a bard in a game, whether it be an online or like a video game version or the real, the real thing. What was your experience like being like a bard? And how well did it go? And how did other people accept it? Or what Christian themes do you think of the idea of being a bard? Or what did I miss anything? I honestly, I probably did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably missed something important about being a bard, but again, like it's just a cool support class. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I might at some point go through and I don't know what, no specific time frame. I might just make a video on a bunch of the different classes. I might, for the most part, I might skip some of the more like quote unquote like evil classes or something. Like, I mean, I don't really support like, again, like from a Christian point of view, I don't really support like darkness. I don't really want to support like being like a full-scale wizard or like sorcery or something to like extreme levels. The bard has a little bit of some magic, but for the most part, they're a pretty normal class. But I might avoid some of the more darker stuff. But, or maybe I'll make a video talking about them. But like, I just don't really want. I don't want to like encourage and support this stuff. I just don't really believe in it. But yeah, I might go through. I don't have a time frame from this, but like here's one of them. So yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. God is good.